Taehyung breaks down after hearing Jungkook's unreleased song. Was it really written about their broken bond? The moment the first chord played, the room stilled. Not even the air dared to move. Taehyung's hand, which had just reached for the bottled water beside him, stopped mid-air. His gaze, previously casual, distracted, sharpened like glass under pressure. And then, Jungkook's voice filled the space. It wasn't just another track. It wasn't just another song for his upcoming album. It was a confession, and Taehyung knew it before the first chorus even hit. I kept the letters you never sent. I read them in my dreams. Your silence still sings louder than any scream. A sharp exhale escaped from Taehyung's lips before he could stop it. No one in the room moved. Not the producer, not the assistant manager, not even Jungkook, who stood in the corner with arms folded, face unreadable, but eyes flickering every now and then to see if Taehyung was reacting. He was, but not in the way anyone expected. Taehyung blinked. Once, twice, then again, as if trying to erase the lyric that had just carved into his chest like a knife. The studio was dim, backlit by blue panels and blinking equipment lights, but his expression was clear, confused, unsettled, betrayed, and something more, an ache he hadn't shown in months. Jungkook's voice carried on. You told the world you were fine, but your eyes kept begging me to ask again. Taehyung's hand slowly lowered, but he didn't reach for the water anymore. Instead, he placed it on his lap. His shoulders dropped slightly, as if the weight of the melody had begun to press him into the leather of the studio chair. His bottom lip quivered, not from weakness, from memory, because he remembered the exact moment that lyric referenced, and it was never meant to be known. Not publicly. Not like this. Jungkook had written it, hidden it, buried it under layers of layered synths and polished chords. But the truth was raw, and no amount of production could mask the fact that this wasn't just a song. This was a wound, and it was bleeding all over the room. The bridge built slowly, strings swelling beneath a stripped-down harmony. The kind of harmony they used to practice in hotel rooms at 3 a.m. The kind, Taehyung once said, reminded him of trust. The irony was cruel. If I lose you in the noise, I'll write my heart loud enough for you to find. Taehyung let out a sharp breath. Then came the tears. One blinked too long, and they slid down silently. Jungkook saw them, his jaw clenched. But he didn't look away. He needed Taehyung to hear it. Every syllable, every regret, every line he never said to his face. Because he had waited, and Taehyung never came. The song ended not with a bang, but a whisper. The final lyric lingered like smoke. I never stopped singing for you. The silence afterward was deafening. No one moved. No one dared to speak. Then, Taehyung did something unexpected. He stood up, chair scraping back. His face was streaked with tears, but his voice, when it came, was steady, almost dangerously calm. How long have you been planning to let me hear that? Jungkook didn't flinch. He stepped forward, finally meeting him head-on. Since the day you stopped calling me by my name. Taehyung's chest rose and fell. The storm in his eyes was swirling now, part pain, part fury, part disbelief. There were 1,000 things he could have said in that moment. Accusations, questions, apologies. But he said none of them. Instead, he whispered, You really wrote that about me. It wasn't a question. Jungkook nodded once. Every line, Taehyung's lips parted. He wanted to speak, to scream, to run, to stay, but his body did none of those things. It crumbled. His knees buckled just enough to catch himself against the edge of the soundboard. A sob broke from his chest, and his hand covered his mouth as if trying to stop it from escaping. Jungkook stepped forward on instinct but paused. He didn't know if he was allowed to come closer. Not anymore. They stared at each other, two men who used to finish each other's harmonies. Now speaking in lyrics they could barely admit aloud. Then, Taehyung finally spoke again, low, broken, desperate. Why didn't you just tell me? Jungkook's voice cracked for the first time. I did. I just didn't have the courage to say it when you were still listening. Taehyung's eyes squeezed shut. He wasn't sure what hurt more, the lyrics, the timing, or the haunting realization that somewhere deep down, he'd been waiting for that song all along. He just didn't know it would feel like this. You don't get to hide behind melodies anymore. Taehyung's voice was sharp, rough from crying. Yet each word hit like a thunderclap in the silence that followed the playback. His eyes, swollen from unshed rage and heartbreak, locked onto Jungkook's with a glare that could have shattered glass. His chest rose and fell with the kind of breath that precedes something irreversible. Jungkook didn't move. He stood a few feet away, rooted not by fear but by a quiet resignation. He had anticipated this. He had spent countless sleepless nights preparing for this confrontation in his head, but none of his mental rehearsals could prepare him for the real thing. Taehyung stepped forward. "You think you're brave because you put your guilt into a song?" he asked, his tone low but shaking. "You think making millions cry for you makes you a hero in this story?" Jungkook's jaw tensed. "I didn't write it to be a hero." "Then what?" Taehyung snapped. "To punish me? To turn the world against me without saying my name? Because you did that perfectly." "That wasn't the intention." "Then say it to my face." Taehyung's voice cracked. "Say what you wrote. Don't sing it. Speak it. Look me in the eyes and tell me what I did to deserve this." Jungkook exhaled slowly, dragging a hand through his hair. His voice trembled when he finally spoke. "You disappeared," he said. "Not from the world, but from me. You stopped answering. You stopped being you. And I waited, Taehyung. I waited longer than I should have. I thought maybe if I gave you space, you'd come back." Taehyung turned his face, jaw clenched so tightly it shook. "I needed that space." "You didn't say that," Jungkook replied, now stepping forward. "You just vanished. You left me in silence, and then smiled like nothing was wrong whenever cameras were on. You wanted space, fine, but you built a wall and locked me out without a key." "I was drowning," Taehyung said, voice dropping into a whisper. "Do you know what it feels like to see your best friend, your everything succeed so brightly, that you start to wonder if your shadow is all that's left for you?" That made Jungkook freeze. Taehyung's voice was calmer now, but laced with something more dangerous than anger. Vulnerability. "You were soaring. Everyone talked about you. Your solo work, your voice, your smile, your humility, your brilliance. I was proud, Jungkook. I was. But every time I stood beside you, I felt like a cracked mirror. That's not what I wanted," Jungkook whispered, shaking his head. "I know," Taehyung said, "but it's what I felt." For a brief moment, there was silence, the kind that hung heavy with years of words they both swallowed instead of sharing, the kind that only exists between people who used to know each other too well. Jungkook slowly approached until they stood an arm's length apart. "That song wasn't to blame you," he said. "It was to say, I never stopped missing you. That I couldn't, that no one replaced you, that I didn't want to let you go." Taehyung's voice caught in his throat. He looked away, as if keeping eye contact would unravel him completely. "And now?" he asked. "Now that the world heard it before I did? What do you want from me?" Jungkook's voice was hoarse. "Now? I want the truth. From you. I want to know why you kept choosing silence. Why you unfollowed me that night after the award show. Why you told the label you weren't comfortable performing with me anymore. Why you started writing songs and deliberately removed my name from the credits when we used to write everything together." Taehyung's shoulders stiffened. "Because I hated what I had become next to you." Jungkook recoiled. "Not you," Taehyung clarified quickly, almost desperate. "Me. I hated how small I felt, how ugly my thoughts got, how jealous I became of someone I loved." The word hung there. Loved, not love, past tense. Jungkook blinked. His chest caved inward slightly. "I never meant to take anything from you," he said, barely audible. "I thought we were lifting each other." "I know you did," Taehyung replied, his voice raw. "But somewhere along the way, I stopped believing I deserved to be beside you." Silence again. Heavy, wet with emotion, dangerous. Then Taehyung stepped back. "I'm not angry you wrote the song," he said. "I'm angry you didn't tell me sooner, that you let the whole world hear it before I did. You knew it would destroy me. I thought it would save us. Then you don't know me anymore." The door to the studio creaked slightly as Taehyung turned toward it. But before he could leave, Jungkook's voice stopped him cold. "I still sing for you." Taehyung didn't turn around. He couldn't. If he did, he wasn't sure he'd be able to walk away. Instead, he whispered, "Then maybe it's time you learn to sing for yourself." And with that, he left. Not slamming the door, not storming out, just disappearing again. Jungkook stood there, alone, in a room still vibrating with the remnants of the song he wrote from the deepest corners of his heart. But now, those vibrations sounded more like echoes of a bond that had once been unbreakable, and now felt like it might have already broken beyond repair. The quiet, after his footsteps faded, was brutal. Worse than silence, it was absence. The kind that songs couldn't fix. Not even his. The stadium was packed. Lights blazed overhead. Cameras flashed like lightning in every direction, and the roar of the crowd was thunderous. It was supposed to be the highlight of the year, Jungkook's first full-length solo showcase. Everything had been planned to perfection. Everything. Except for the aftermath. When the final notes of the encore track faded and the stadium fell into a stunned, aching silence, Jungkook knew something was wrong. Not with the crowd. They were weeping, shaking, chanting his name with trembling voices. The song had done exactly what it was meant to do. But the damage had shifted. Backstage, chaos buzzed just beneath the surface. Staff shuffled quietly, avoiding his gaze. Managers whispered behind clipboards. There was a kind of tension in the air that hadn't been there before he stepped onto that stage. Because he hadn't just performed a new track. He'd performed the track, the one that was supposed to stay unreleased. The one about him. The one Taehyung hadn't approved. Jungkook was still catching his breath, towel over his neck, sweat clinging to his skin, when the dressing room door flew open with a force that made the mirror tremble. Taehyung. He wasn't supposed to be here. He wasn't even on the guest list. And yet, here he was. Eyes burning, jaw tight, expression unreadable. "You performed it?" Taehyung's voice was too calm. The kind of calm that carried the threat of a storm behind it. Jungkook stood up slowly. "You were here?" "I wasn't supposed to be," Taehyung replied, stepping fully into the room, the door slamming shut behind him. "But someone sent me the live stream link. I watched it. Every second, every word, every breath." Jungkook swallowed. "I didn't think—" "No," Taehyung interrupted. You didn't think, Jungkook. Or maybe you did. Maybe you planned this. Maybe you wanted to humiliate me. That's not what this is. Isn't it?" Taehyung's voice cracked. "You knew I wasn't ready. You knew I was still trying to process the song. But you threw it out there, uncensored, raw, and completely weaponized in front of millions." "It's not a weapon," Jungkook shouted. "It's the truth." "That's easy for you to say," Taehyung snapped. "You got a standing ovation. I got stripped naked in front of the world. That was never my intention." "Then what was your intention, Jungkook? To heal us? To fix what you broke? Or to control the narrative before I had a chance to speak?" Jungkook ran a hand through his hair, breathing hard. "You didn't want to speak. You never did." "Because I didn't know what to say," Taehyung yelled. "Because every time I tried, you were already 10 steps ahead of me, writing songs, doing interviews, telling the story like I was just a ghost." Jungkook stared at him, his voice quieter now. "Do you want me to lie? Pretend I didn't write it? Pretend it's about someone else?" "I want you to stop deciding for both of us," Taehyung hissed. "I want you to stop turning your guilt into art and calling it love." The words hung in the air like smoke from a grenade. Jungkook's hands balled into fists at his sides. "You think that song was about guilt?" "No. It was grief." Taehyung's breath hitched. "I wrote it because I lost you," Jungkook said, stepping closer. "Not to fame, not to fans, to silence, to your refusal to let me in." "I begged, Tae. I waited. I blamed myself, but you—" His voice cracked. "You left without a word, and I needed a place to put the pain." Taehyung stared at him, unmoving, face unreadable. "You put it in a melody," he finally said, eyes glossing. "But I didn't get that luxury. I didn't get a stage or a song. I got phone calls ignored. I got dinners where we sat in silence. I got your back turned in rehearsals. And when I asked for space, you wrote an anthem and performed it for the whole world. I performed it because I was tired of hiding," Jungkook said. "And I'm tired of being the villain in your lyrics." The silence that followed was heavy and hot. The kind of silence that threatened to crack the walls of the room itself. Then Taehyung turned, hand on the door. But he hesitated, just for a moment. Without turning around, he asked, "Did you ever consider that maybe I was hurting just as much as you?" Jungkook's voice was hoarse. "Every single day." Taehyung nodded slowly, then walked out. The door closed softly behind him, but the wound it left behind slammed shut like a gunshot. And Jungkook, alone again, sank into the nearest chair. Not because he was tired, but because he didn't know if his legs could carry the weight of what had just happened. The applause from the crowd still echoed faintly through the corridors, but it didn't sound like victory anymore. It sounded like silence wearing a crown. And for the first time in months, Jungkook wondered if singing his truth had cost him the only person he truly wrote it for. Is that how you see me now? A coward? The hotel corridor was dim, empty, except for the flickering of a single overhead light near the elevator. Taehyung stood there, back against the wall, arms crossed tightly over his chest as if holding himself together. Jungkook's words rang out down the hall, echoing louder than the click of his boots on the carpet as he approached. Taehyung didn't answer right away. He just stared straight ahead, jaw clenched so tightly his cheekbones twitched. Jungkook stopped 2 feet from him, heart pounding beneath the weight of everything unsaid. "You stormed out after the show," Jungkook said, voice low but cutting. "You left before the press room, before the encore, before we even had a chance to—" "To what?" Taehyung snapped, finally meeting his eyes. "Have another round of rehearsed apologies wrapped in poetic metaphors?" Jungkook's throat tightened. "No, to talk, like we used to. Not through lyrics, not through staff, not through rumors." Taehyung pushed off the wall. "You don't get to ask for that now. You don't get to call for honesty when you stood on that stage and aired my private breakdown like it was part of the set list." "I never said your name," Jungkook defended. "But they knew," Taehyung said coldly. "The fans knew, the label knew, the way your voice broke in the second verse that wasn't acting. That was a live confession. And now I'm trending for a song I didn't consent to. Because they remember us," Jungkook said, stepping closer. "They remember what we were. They remember how we looked at each other during interviews, how we laughed like idiots behind the stage, how we always stood next to each other at the curtain call." "Exactly," Taehyung bit. "They remember a version of us that no longer exists." Jungkook's voice dropped. "Then tell them the truth." Taehyung blinked. "Tell them we stopped speaking," Jungkook continued. "Tell them we broke apart, that we couldn't handle the weight of being Jungkook and Taehyung anymore, that we cracked, that we failed." "I'm not here to feed tabloids," Taehyung said. "But you'll let them build their own version of the story?" Jungkook said bitterly. "One where I'm the heartbroken fool and you're the cold one who walked away?" "I didn't walk away," Taehyung shouted. "I waited. You just never looked back." Jungkook shook his head, his voice raw. "That's not fair." "Neither is this," Taehyung said, stepping forward, voice trembling. "Neither is hearing a room full of strangers scream lyrics you wrote about me while I'm in the dark, watching it from a phone screen like I'm just some ex you immortalized for pity." Jungkook's chest heaved. "Do you know what it felt like to write that? To put every word down knowing you might hate me for it?" Taehyung's expression twisted. "I don't hate you." "Then what?" Jungkook asked. "What is it, Tae? Because I've ripped myself open on national TV, and you still look at me like I'm the one who left." Taehyung looked down. Then his voice came so soft it barely survived the silence between them. "I'm scared of what comes next." Jungkook blanked. "What do you mean?" "I mean, if we try to fix this, and it doesn't work, if we try to talk again, and it ends the same way, with shouting and silence, I don't know if I can survive losing you twice." That broke something in Jungkook. All the anger, all the adrenaline, all the defenses, they collapsed in one breath. His posture softened, his shoulders slumped, and his voice, when it came again, was gentle, barely more than a whisper. "Then let's try and fail." Taehyung's eyes widened. Jungkook stepped closer, hands shaking. "Let's scream, cry, argue, run away, come back. Let's mess it all up again. But don't you dare keep shutting me out without giving us the chance to ruin or repair this properly." Taehyung's eyes glistened. "You're not just a song to me," Jungkook said. "You never were. You're the silence I didn't know how to fill, the space I didn't want anyone else to take, and I was a coward too. But I'm not running anymore." Taehyung didn't speak. He just stood there, breathing heavily, as tears slid down his cheeks. Then suddenly, the elevator behind him dinged open. Neither of them moved. Until finally, Taehyung turned and reached out, pushing the button to close the doors again. "I don't know if I'm ready to talk." "I'll wait," Jungkook said. "I don't know if I can forgive you yet. I'll keep singing until you can. And what if I never do?" Jungkook's lips parted. But this time, he didn't offer a poetic line. He just answered with the truth. "Then I'll live with that." Taehyung stared at him, searching for a lie, but there was none. Only the kind of raw honesty that couldn't be faked. The elevator dinged again, but this time, Taehyung didn't push it closed. He turned to Jungkook, took a step forward, and said nothing. Not yet, because some things take longer than a song to heal. But for the first time, in a long time, they were standing in the same room, facing each other. And that was a beginning. Even if it still hurt like hell. Don't lie to me again, Jungkook. Taehyung's voice cut through the early morning silence like a blade, sharp and low, echoing off the empty rooftop of the Hive building. The sky was a haze of gray, clouds bruised with rain that hadn't fallen yet. And the city below was still asleep, unaware that two broken men were standing above it, tearing through each other with truths neither of them were ready to face. Jungkook stood opposite him, eyes bloodshot not from tears this time, but from the sleepless nights that had led to this confrontation. He'd asked Taehyung to meet him here. He didn't expect him to actually show up, and now that he had, Jungkook wasn't sure he was ready for what was about to be said. "I'm not lying," he replied, his voice hoarse from the cold wind and guilt. "You didn't tell me about the demo you leaked," Taehyung said, stepping closer, his tone controlled, but his hands were clenched into trembling fists at his sides. "You told the staff it was a technical mistake, that it was accidentally released during mixing." Jungkook looked away. "But that was a lie, wasn't it?" Taehyung pressed. "You leaked it, on purpose, so people would start speculating." "I needed them to hear it," Jungkook said finally. "I needed someone to feel what I was feeling." "And you needed me to burn in the fallout," Taehyung hissed. "Do you even understand what you did to me, Jungkook?" "I didn't do it to hurt you," Jungkook said, stepping forward. "I did it because I couldn't carry it alone anymore. I thought—" "You thought if you couldn't fix us, at least you'd own the pain," Taehyung snapped. "So you made it public. You turned it into a story, your story, but you left out my side." Jungkook's eyes narrowed. "What side? The part where you shut me out? The part where you ignored every message I sent for months? The part where you told the company you didn't want to be paired with me anymore without even telling me first?" Taehyung's nostrils flared. "I did that to protect both of us." "No, you did it to erase me quietly," Jungkook said bitterly. "You thought if we stopped standing next to each other, people would forget. That maybe it would all fade." Taehyung's voice dropped. "Because I didn't want to destroy what we had left." "You destroyed it anyway," Jungkook shot back. "And then you acted surprised when I stopped pretending I was okay." The wind picked up, sweeping around them like a storm was building beneath their feet. Taehyung's shoulders rose as he tried to hold himself together. "I lied to protect you," he said, voice raw. "From myself, from the media, from what I was going through. I told everyone we needed space because I thought it was safer than telling them I couldn't look at you without remembering everything we never said." Jungkook's lips parted, but he didn't speak. Taehyung continued, his voice cracking. "You were everywhere. Your laugh, your scent, your stupid routines, the way you always hummed when you tied your shoes. I didn't know how to exist beside you anymore without losing myself." "So you vanished," Jungkook said, softer now. "I broke," Taehyung replied. "And you?" Turned my silence into a chorus. Jungkook stepped closer again, carefully. "I was broken too," he said. "I just didn't know how to show it without setting fire to everything around me." "And you did," Taehyung whispered. "You set fire to us." A long silence fell between them. The wind slowed. The rooftop lights flickered. A bird flew by, unaware of the devastation standing on human feet. Then Jungkook reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, a folded piece of paper, worn at the edges. He handed it to Taehyung. Taehyung hesitated, then took it, unfolding the page slowly. It was a lyric sheet, handwritten, raw, messy, different from the polished songs the public heard. His eyes scanned the words. "If I'm the villain in your silence, let me burn with your forgiveness." Taehyung blinked hard. "You wrote this?" he asked. Jungkook nodded. "But I never recorded it." "Why not?" "Because I was afraid you'd never want to hear it." Taehyung held the paper tighter, knuckles white. "Why show me now?" Jungkook looked him in the eye. "Because I don't want to write about you anymore. I want to talk to you, for real. No melodies, no metaphors." Taehyung was quiet for a long time. Then, he folded the paper again. slowly, carefully, and handed it back. "You still don't get it," he said softly. Jungkook froze. "I didn't need another apology," Taehyung continued. "I needed a conversation, months ago. Not after you'd immortalized the wound." Jungkook looked down. "So what now?" Taehyung exhaled shakily. "Now, we stop pretending that healing is going to come from a perfect bridge or a final chorus." "And us?" Jungkook asked, voice nearly a whisper. Taehyung didn't answer. Instead, he stepped back, putting space between them again. "Stop writing me into your songs, Jungkook," he said. "Let me be a person again, not a lyric." Then he walked away. This time, Jungkook didn't chase him. He stood there, alone, on the rooftop, the wind picking up again around him, and he finally realized something he'd been denying for months. Some people don't leave because they stop loving you. They leave because loving you hurts too much. And no song in the world could undo that. The lights were off in the practice studio, save for the flickering exit sign above the back door. Mirrors lined every wall, reflecting only shadows and regret. The air was heavy with sweat, dust, and the ghost of music that used to play endlessly from their sessions. It had been weeks since they'd been in the same room. Weeks since Taehyung told Jungkook to stop writing him into songs. Weeks since everything felt irreversible. Until tonight. Jungkook sat on the hardwood floor, legs stretched out, back against the mirrored wall. His hoodie was soaked through, his hair clinging to his forehead. And beside him lay a voice recorder off, untouched, forgotten. He hadn't come here to create. He came here to feel something. Anything. But he hadn't expected the door to open. And he certainly hadn't expected Taehyung to be the one walking through it. Their eyes locked instantly. The tension punched the air out of the room. Jungkook pushed himself up slowly, blinking in disbelief. "You're not supposed to be here," he said, voice quiet. Taehyung shut the door behind him, the click echoing like a verdict. "I could say the same." Silence. Then Jungkook stepped forward. "You came to tell me something?" "I came to ask," Taehyung said, steady but cold. "Are you moving forward with the new track?" Jungkook's heart dropped. "You mean the one I played last week?" "The one clearly about me again," Taehyung clarified. "The one with the bridge that references a rooftop, and the line about a lyric returned, but a heart never taken back." Jungkook's shoulders stiffened. "It's not just about you. You used my words. I used our moment." Taehyung's jaw clenched. "Did you even think before turning my pain into poetry again? Or did you just see another opportunity to make the fans cry?" "That's not fair," Jungkook snapped. "I'm not exploiting you." "You're not?" Taehyung laughed bitterly. "Then what is this obsession with turning every argument, every breath we share, into content?" "I'm not releasing it," Jungkook admitted. "Not yet. I wanted to talk to you first." Taehyung's eyes narrowed. "You wanted to soften the blow. That's all." "No," Jungkook said, his voice cracking. "I wanted to ask if you'd listen, not as someone I hurt, as someone who knew me before the world did." Taehyung paused, visibly shaken. "You know what hurts the most?" he said slowly. "It's not that you wrote the songs. It's that you never once asked if I wanted to be remembered that way." Jungkook's expression faltered. Taehyung stepped closer. "You turned every silence into your narrative, every absence into a wound that only you were allowed to bleed from. But did you ever think that maybe I stayed silent because I didn't want the world watching me shatter?" "I was shattering too," Jungkook whispered. "Then you should have shattered with me," Taehyung said. "Not in front of cameras, not on global stages, not where I had to find out who I was through fan theories and lyric breakdowns." Jungkook's hands shook. "So this is how you let me go? Off camera? In silence?" Taehyung looked down. "I let you go when I realized loving you cost me myself." Jungkook swallowed hard. "I never asked you to stop being you." "But I did," Taehyung said, "without meaning to, without knowing how. I started measuring myself by your spotlight, your charts, your fans. I lost the version of me that used to walk into this room excited to harmonize with you." Jungkook blinked rapidly. "So what now?" "I don't know," Taehyung said honestly. "But I know this, if we ever want to find each other again, it can't be through pain disguised as poetry." Jungkook exhaled. "Then what?" "We start by not performing the past," Taehyung said. Let it breathe. Let us breathe. Jungkook stepped back, the distance between them growing again. I still love you, he said, barely audible. Taehyung closed his eyes. I know, but sometimes that's not enough. The silence wrapped around them like a second skin. No music. No lyrics. Just the sound of what used to be and the truth of what now remained. Taehyung opened the door but didn't leave yet. Promise me something, he said. Jungkook looked up. Promise me the next song you write is about yourself. Jungkook's throat burned. He gave a small nod, and Taehyung walked out without another word. This time, it wasn't a dramatic exit. There was no shouting, no collapse, no shattering glass of emotion. It was quieter, heavier, and somehow, that made it so much worse. Jungkook stayed in the studio long after he left, not to write, not to sing, but to finally listen to the silence he had ignored for far too long. The cold hum of the computer screen was the only sound in the dim studio. Rain tapped against the windows like it wanted to be let in. Jungkook sat alone, staring at the blinking cursor on his digital audio workstation. Track after track was labeled in clean fonts, names like Fall 1.2, Taehyung, Raw Vocals, Draft, Honesty, V3, Final, and then a file he hadn't touched in months. V. Answer, Not, for release, Wave. He hovered over it. His hand trembled. Then he clicked play. The sound began raw, no backing track, no reverb, no mastering. Just a single voice. Taehyung's voice, breathing, speaking. Then, a melody. Then, a confession. I never stopped listening. I just didn't know what to say without breaking. Jungkook inhaled sharply. He had forgotten he saved this. Forgotten how it got there. It was a voice memo Taehyung had sent months ago during their coldest silence. A reply to the demo Jungkook had emailed him during the early fallout. The file had never been acknowledged again. Never spoken about. It was too painful. Too real. But now, with the rain outside like a metronome ticking through their shattered rhythm, Jungkook listened to the whole thing again. And something in him broke open. Because it wasn't just a song. It was a goodbye. He replayed it twice before he grabbed his phone, fingers shaking. He had to ask. He had to know if Taehyung even remembered recording it. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Then, don't. Taehyung's voice answered immediately, guarded, flat. Don't pretend this is a casual call. Jungkook froze. You knew I'd call. I figured you'd find it eventually, Taehyung said. You wrote a song back to me, Jungkook said. You never said a word. Because it was never meant to be heard. I recorded it the night after the rooftop. I was drunk, angry, raw. I sent it by accident. Jungkook's voice cracked. But you sang everything I needed to hear. You told me you were scared of becoming someone you didn't recognize. You told me the silence wasn't rejection, it was survival. And what would you have done if I told you that sober? Taehyung asked. Written a duet? Turned it into a collab for damage control? I would have come to you, Jungkook said desperately. I would have listened. But you didn't, Taehyung replied. You shelved it. Like it was a file. Like it was nothing. It wasn't nothing. No, Taehyung said. It was a scream. You just muted it. Jungkook pressed his hand to his face, pacing the studio. I didn't know what to say back. And now that you do? Taehyung asked. I want you to sing it with me. Taehyung laughed bitterly. You don't get it, do you? What? You always want the resolution to be public. You want the healing to be broadcast. You want us to reconcile on stage, so the narrative is tied with a bow and the fans can exhale. Because they care, Jungkook snapped. Because you care about what they see, Taehyung countered. But what about what I feel? Jungkook paused. Taehyung continued, softer. I sent that track because I didn't know how to talk to you anymore, so I sang it. Not for release, not for a tour. Just so you could hear me again without the noise. I heard you, Jungkook said, voice breaking. I hear you now. Taehyung didn't speak for a long time. Then, quietly, why now? Because I can't let this sit in a folder, Jungkook said. It's the only thing that felt real in months. That's because it was real, Taehyung said. And real things don't always get shared. Jungkook exhaled. So you want it buried? I want it respected. Another silence. I thought you stopped writing, Jungkook said. I did, Taehyung admitted, until that night. That was the last time I let music carry something I was too afraid to say. Jungkook leaned against the wall, eyes closed. You want me to delete it? No, Taehyung replied. I want you to remember that not everything beautiful belongs to the world. Jungkook nodded, even though no one could see it. And then, unexpectedly, Taehyung said something so gentle it shattered the walls they'd built. Thank you for listening. Jungkook's throat closed. I'm sorry it took me this long, he whispered. So am I, Taehyung replied. But some things we write so we can let go, not to hold on. And then the line went dead. Jungkook sat in the quiet again. Rain still tapping the glass. The screen still glowing. The cursor still blinking beside the title. The answer. Not. For release. Wave. It didn't press delete. He didn't press upload. He simply closed the window. And for once, he didn't turn pain into a product. He let it exist in the dark, alive, unreleased, and finally understood. The rehearsal room was full of tension, the kind that didn't need words. Everyone could feel it, the dancers, the producers, the camera crew prepping for the upcoming joint stage reunion between BTS members. The showrunner kept darting nervous glances toward the door, whispering into his headset like damage control was already underway. Taehyung had shown up 15 minutes late. Jungkook had been there early. When Taehyung walked in, the room didn't freeze, but it held its breath. He wore all black, a beanie pulled low over his hair, jaw set like stone. He didn't greet anyone. He didn't smile. Jungkook saw him the moment he stepped in. He didn't look away. Neither did Taehyung. Everyone knew they hadn't spoken since the last phone call. Everyone also knew they were supposed to stand side by side for the choreography. It was all carefully scripted for nostalgia. One mic stand, two voices, old harmonies, new maturity. But what couldn't be choreographed was everything still unsaid between them. The music began, the familiar intro of their once famous duet echoing through the speakers. The choreographer clapped his hands. Positions. Jungkook moved to his mark. Taehyung didn't. Taehyung-si, the choreographer asked, gently, trying not to break the mood. Taehyung finally moved. Slowly, like every step he took toward Jungkook was a reluctant surrender. They stood barely 2 feet apart. Jungkook glanced at him. You okay? Taehyung didn't look at him. Do I look okay? Jungkook's lips tightened. We're going to be performing this live in 3 days. We can't afford to mess this up. Then maybe you shouldn't have chosen this song. Jungkook turned sharply. You agreed to it. I didn't agree to the meaning, Taehyung muttered. I agreed to the set list. Jungkook lowered his voice. If you didn't want to do it, why did you come? Taehyung finally looked at him. Because they booked us before asking if we were ready. The music stopped. The choreographer blinked in confusion. No one dared interrupt. You could have said no, Jungkook said. And you could have said something when they pitched it, Taehyung snapped. Instead, you just nodded. Like it was fine. Like everything's okay now. Because we're on the same stage. I thought you wanted closure. No, Taehyung said. I wanted truth. But you, he scoffed, stepping closer. You don't want truth. You want forgiveness, packaged neatly with high notes and standing ovations. Jungkook's eyes darkened. That's not true. Then why haven't you told them? Taehyung asked, loud enough now that the entire room pretended not to listen. Why haven't you told the label you don't want this reunion to be a performance? Because it's bigger than us now, Jungkook shot back. The fans, don't use them as a shield, Taehyung said. They see everything. They saw the cracks before we did. But they didn't ask us to fake a duet. I'm not faking anything. Then stop pretending you're still writing these songs for me. That hit like a slap. Jungkook's voice was a whisper, sharp and shaken. I never stopped. Taehyung stepped even closer. But you stopped being real. They stared at each other, too close, too loud in a room that was supposed to be about music and movement, not scars. Taehyung's voice softened, but it didn't lose its bite. I didn't ask for forgiveness, Jungkook. You just wanted it to be convenient, neatly resolved, so we could stand here again without shaking. I'm not asking for convenience, Jungkook said, fists clenched. I'm asking for us. There is no us when the apology comes wrapped in production. I apologize when the cameras weren't rolling. Taehyung's eyes flashed. You apologized for what made you hurt, not for what you did to me. What did I do, Taehyung? Jungkook challenged. Tell me, because I've dissected every breath I took around you, and I still don't know which one broke us. You kept choosing songs over conversations, Taehyung hissed. You kept hiding behind lyrics so you wouldn't have to say it directly. You wrote grief instead of asking me how I felt. I didn't know how to, Jungkook said, the words breaking out. You made me feel like I wasn't allowed. Because you weren't, Taehyung shouted. Not after what you did. Not after you made my silence a melody without permission. The music still hadn't restarted. Nobody moved. Finally, Taehyung stepped back. The heat in his eyes faded into exhaustion. You think this performance is redemption, he said. But all it's doing is proving how little we learned. Jungkook said nothing. Couldn't. Taehyung turned away, walking to the door. Tell the choreographer to find a new formation, he said. I'm not standing next to you for something I don't believe in. Then what do you believe in? Jungkook asked, voice hoarse. Taehyung stopped, looked back. I believe in healing, but not like this. Not under lights. Not in front of people who only know half of what really happened. And then he left. No cameras. No applause. Only truth, heavy in the air. Jungkook stayed standing, still in position, still holding on to a duet that had already fallen apart. The press conference was supposed to be a celebration. Every seat in the hall was filled, cameras pointed forward, microphones polished to reflect every glint of pressure. Screens behind the podium displayed the words, BTS, Unity Stage, one night only. Taehyung wasn't there. He wasn't supposed to be. Jungkook stood in the middle of it all, surrounded by stylists, PR agents, and executives trying to patch a storm with forced smiles and bulletproof scripts. But nothing they rehearsed could prepare them for what was about to happen. Because Taehyung walked in unannounced, untamed, and in all black, and he walked right up to the stage, the murmurs spread like wildfire, the media jolting into position, cameras flashing before anyone even understood what was happening. Jungkook froze. Taehyung grabbed the extra mic on the table, and without sitting down, without waiting for a cue, he spoke. Don't ask me about the performance, he said. There won't be one. Jungkook stood up slowly. Taehyung didn't look at him. Not yet. He looked at the crowd, the flashing lenses, the spinning wheels of fandom and profit. Don't ask me about rehearsals. Don't ask me about harmony. Don't ask me about a song I never approved. Jungkook's heart sank. Not here. Where else? Taehyung turned to him finally, voice sharp. Where else do you want this conversation to happen? In another studio? In a hallway we forget the moment the cameras stop rolling? Or maybe in another verse you'll write and pretend it's closure? The audience fell dead silent. Even the cameras seemed afraid to breathe. Taehyung walked closer. You want a duet? He said, his tone piercing. Start with the truth. Jungkook blinked. This isn't the place. It's the only place you listen, Taehyung said. You listen when it's dramatic, when it's loud, when it's too late. This isn't about listening, Jungkook whispered, jaw tight. This is about punishment. No, Taehyung replied. It's about consequences. A beat, then softer. You turned me into a symbol. But I was your best friend before I was your heartbreak. Jungkook's hands curled into fists. Do you think I don't know that? Then act like it, Taehyung said. Act like I mattered beyond the melody. I loved you, Jungkook said, voice cracking. More than the music, more than the group, more than the fame. Then why did you write about me instead of talking to me? Taehyung asked, breath trembling. Why did you let everyone hear my pain before you ever gave me a chance to explain it? I was scared, Jungkook admitted. You were slipping away, and I didn't know how to stop it. You don't stop someone from leaving by putting a spotlight on their silence. Then what should I have done? Jungkook pleaded. Tell me, Tae. Tell me what I could have done that wouldn't have ended with you walking out every time I tried. Taehyung looked at him, really looked at him. I wanted you to see me, he said. Not as your inspiration, not as your lyrical tragedy, just as someone who was drowning beside you. Jungkook felt his throat burn. I was drowning too. But you called it art, Taehyung said. And then quietly, and I called it betrayal. The room was too quiet for this kind of intimacy, too crowded for this kind of honesty. And yet, neither of them looked away. "I'm not performing," Taehyung said again. "Not until you learn that some things aren't meant to be sung." Jungkook stepped toward him, voice low, desperate. "Then what do you want from me?" "I want you to sit in the silence with me," Taehyung said. "No chords, no rhymes, no press, just the sound of what we broke." Jungkook's voice fell into a whisper. "And if I do?" "Then maybe," Taehyung replied, "we can write something that doesn't hurt." He turned, stepping down from the stage, not to make a scene, but to finally leave one. The press didn't speak. The managers didn't intervene. For once, the room let the silence carry the story. Jungkook didn't chase him, not because he didn't want to, but because maybe, just maybe, Taehyung needed to be followed differently this time. Not with lyrics, not with cameras, but with listening, real listening. He watched him walk away. And this time, it wasn't the end. But it had to be a pause. A long, aching pause before either of them deserved to sing again. It wasn't planned. It wasn't on the schedule. It wasn't even supposed to happen. But Jungkook showed up anyway. No staff, no security, no stylists. Just him, in an oversized black hoodie, cap pulled low, hands shoved into his pockets like he didn't know what else to do with the weight of them. Taehyung was alone in the recording booth. It was well past midnight. The room was dark, save for the glow of the screen and the soft amber light from the single floor lamp behind him. He wasn't recording vocals. He wasn't producing. He was just sitting there, headphones off, looping the same instrumental over and over again. He didn't turn when the door opened. He didn't have to. He knew the footsteps. "I didn't ask for company," Taehyung said, not unkindly, just tired. "I didn't come to talk," Jungkook answered, closing the door behind him. Taehyung didn't respond. The instrumental played on gentle piano, static texture, a melody that sounded like it was grieving something no one would ever understand. Jungkook stepped forward slowly, eyes scanning the room. No lyrics on the notepad. No vocals in the mix. Just that instrumental. Open, wounded, waiting. "You working on something?" he asked quietly. Taehyung pulled the headphones off and leaned back. "No, I'm trying to forget what it used to mean to make music with you." Jungkook flinched. The silence stretched between them like a rope about to snap. Taehyung finally looked at him. His face was unreadable, but his eyes, God, his eyes were exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. Jungkook stepped closer. "Then why loop it?" "Because if I stop the loop, I'll have to fill the silence," Taehyung said. "And I'm not sure I trust my voice around you anymore." Jungkook sat down slowly across from him, leaving space. His voice was small, fragile. "I listened to your song again, the one you never released." Taehyung closed his eyes. "Don't." "Oh, I wasn't trying to turn it into something," Jungkook said. I wanted to understand what you were too afraid to say in person." "You don't get to do that," Taehyung said, suddenly sitting forward. "You don't get to call it understanding just because you played the file." "I know I hurt you." "No," Taehyung cut him off. "Stop reducing it to that. This isn't about hurt. It's about responsibility. You keep saying sorry like it's a song lyric, but you've never actually stood in what you did." Jungkook's brows pulled in. "What didn't I take responsibility for?" "You never wrote a song about what you did," Taehyung said, voice trembling. "Only about how you felt. You made it all about your heartbreak, your confusion, your guilt, but you never once wrote about how you broke trust, how you blurred lines, how you used our pain as your redemption arc." Jungkook stared at the floor. "I didn't know how." "Because you didn't want to," Taehyung said. "Because it's easier to be the victim in the story than the one who lit the match." Jungkook looked up, eyes wet. "You think I meant to hurt you?" "I think you chose to protect your truth over our reality." The room felt like it was holding its breath. Then Jungkook said something he had never said before. "I wanted the world to see me hurting, so they wouldn't ask why you left." Taehyung blinked. Jungkook's voice cracked. "I didn't want them to hate you, so I made them hurt with me. Not at you." Taehyung's mouth opened, but no words came. "I thought if I made myself the wound, they'd forget to look for the knife," Jungkook continued. "I thought it was protecting you, but maybe I was just afraid of them finding out how complicated it really was." Taehyung's jaw trembled. He looked away. "Then why did you never tell me that?" he whispered. Because I was ashamed. Silence again. Not the kind that ended conversations. The kind that hovered over them like a shared scar. Jungkook leaned forward, elbows on his knees, voice barely audible. "I don't want another song," he said. "I don't want another fake reunion. I don't want press coverage or staged forgiveness. I want to rebuild something real, even if it's slow, even if it never looks like before." Taehyung looked at him. For a long time. Too long. And then he said, "There's a studio down the hall. It's empty." Jungkook blinked. "What?" "If you're serious," Taehyung said, standing up, "go there. Start writing. But don't write about me. Don't write for me. Just write as you." And then Taehyung met his eyes. "If I believe you, I'll join you." Jungkook didn't say anything. He didn't need to. He stood, walked toward the door, paused, and without turning around, he said, "I'll wait there, as long as it takes." Taehyung watched him leave. And for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel like he was being left behind. He felt like maybe, just maybe, something real was waiting. Not a performance, not a memory, but a beginning.